Okay, hello Cloud Gurus. How y'all doing? Welcome to the Deployment Management Lab, where we're going to do some zero downtime deployment. Well, after years of R&D and millions spent in venture capital, our small company is finally ready to release version 1.0 of our long anticipated API, the Shakespeare Insult Engine. It's an API that can be called anytime to get a hearty dose of Shakespearean insults. Now, we're readying version 2 to be released because we've incorporated quite a bit of customer feedback. But because it's so well used, we can't incur any downtime at all during a deployment. So we have to figure out what to do. So for starters, we're going to have to figure out a deployment method. And secondly, we need to get both versions set up and running. You'll find a link to the application, both version 1 and version 2, in the resources section under this lecture. And then finally, we need to do a cutover and then test that, and then roll back and then test that. Now, if you've chosen the expert level path, this is where you get off. This is where your stop is. You can go build this and then come back and see how I did it. Now, if you're intermediate level, the next slide is going to give you some hints that may make it a little bit easier for you to get started. So regarding deployment method, I'm not going to say anything. There's just a picture here. Regarding getting both applications up and running, there's some stuff here: git clone npm install node app.js. And then when we talk about cutover testing and rollback, I kind of see that as just flip-flop back and forth. Now, if you're intermediate level, go out and build this thing. Hopefully the hints gave you some ideas. If you keep watching, I'm going to get into the walkthrough and I'm going to show you two options of how I did this. So if you haven't guessed yet, the type of deployment we're looking at is called a blue-green deployment. And there's about 6 different ways that you can do this on AWS. And I'm going to show you 2 of the ways. One is probably about the easiest way, and that's using Elastic Beanstalk. I'm also going to show you something a little bit more traditional under Route 53. But first, let's go into Elastic Beanstalk. To get started, all I have to do is create a new application. Then I have to create my environments, and I'm going to create one environment for each version. I'll start with version 1. We're working in a web server environment. And the environment name here is, I'll call it insults v1. And the domain will be insults. And I'm going to use a pre-configured platform. The application I have is a Node.js app. And I'm going to upload. Now, as part of the resources, there's a link to a repository with both version 1 and version 2 of very simple Node.js applications. All you have to do is zip the contents of those individual version directories, and that's what we're going to upload. Now that we've uploaded, we can just create our environment. And it's going to take a little while for this environment to spin up. So I'm going to pause it and we'll rejoin once the environment's ready. Our version 1 environment has successfully come up. And here's its URL. So we can open this up and take a look. So this is what our fancy API does, is every time I refresh the page, it issues a new insult. You can see this is version 1. And here's the host name of the machine it's running on. Pribbling elf-skinned nuthook. I love that. Okay, so now we need to create an environment for version 2. So we can just clone that environment. So instead of calling v1, we're going to call this v2. And the URL will be v2. Everything else is the same. So again, it's going to take about 4 to 5 minutes to completely stand up this environment. In the meantime, I'm going to go upload version 2 of our application. So here's the initial version. can upload a new version. We'll call this V2. And again, all we have to do is zip up the contents of the V2 folder. And so here's version 2. It's ready to go when our environment is ready. Okay, our clone of version 1 environment is now finished. It's called V2, but it still has the version 1 code. So what I'm going to do is deploy the version 2 code to that new environment. So deployment has started, and it'll take maybe a minute or two. While that's going on, I'm going to show you how we're going to test this. So I have what I'm calling a witness machine. It's just the machine that's going to be continually hitting the URL. What I'm using here is a command called watch, and that just repeats a command every n number of seconds. In this case, it's every second. And the command I'm using is curl. So we're going out and hitting this HTTP endpoint, which is version 1 right now. So if we execute that, we can see that we're seeing the same exact thing as we saw in the browser. But I'm going to have this going in the background here so that when we do our cutovers, you can see that there truly is zero downtime. So let's see if our deployment finished. It did. Version 2 is now running. So I'm going to take a look at this. So there we go. Here is version 2. We know it's version 2 because it has version 2 here as the insult. And then most importantly, it has the new feature that we added based on customer feedback, which is the extra mean mode. So let us try to do the cutover. Doing a blue-green deployment in Elastic Beanstalk is exceedingly easy. Right now, we've stood up 2 instances. We have our production instance, and then we have the instance that's ready to go to production. And to make the cutover, all we have to do is swap the URLs. So we have our current environment, and then our future environment. And if we click on swap, what we're going to see is this URL will appear over here soon. And then shortly after that, after some time to live expires, you're going to see the version 2 here change. You just saw the exchange of URLs. Now, any moment, there we go. We're now serving up version 2. And you can see there was no 404 errors, no downtime whatsoever. Now, what happens if we realize that we have a problem with version 2? Let's swap it back. So we're going to see these URLs exchange again. They just exchanged. So we should see version 1 come back here. And there it is. And that's how you do a blue-green deployment using Elastic Beanstalk. The second way I'm going to do a blue-green deployment is using Route 53 and just regular EC2 instances. To get set up, I've already created 3 instances, one called blue, one called green, and one that I'm calling witness. And that's the one that I'm going to be logged into when I'm testing the cutover. Now, I've also set up these instances and their IP addresses in Route 53. So I have blue.scottpletcher.guru and green.scottpletcher.guru. Those are A records. And then you also notice that I have some CNAME records set up for insult.scottpletcher.guru. And right now, as we have it, the blue instance has a weight of 1, and the green instance has a weight of 0. So this is somewhat similar to what we did on Elastic Beanstalk, but in this case, I'm just running the node programs from their respective blue and green instances. So you can see version 1 running on the blue instance, and version 2 is running on the green instance. And then I'm going to use that same watch curl command to go out and hit version 1, which is the insult.scottpletcher.guru. And we're going to use this to illustrate the cutover. I'm going to arrange my windows a bit so we can see everything at the same time. So for starters, I'm going to change green weight to 1 and blue's weight to 0. And that should redirect 100% of the traffic to the green instance. So all we have to do is wait until the time to live expires. And there's the change. Now I can change it back. Blue has a weight of 1, green has a weight of 0. And again, I've accelerated a bit just to get past the time to live. And then we change back to 1. And you see there's no downtime, no 404 errors, nothing like that. We can also split the traffic 50-50. Now this isn't a percentage, remember it's an integer from 0 to 255, but as long as both values are the same, it's divided equally. And again, time to live has to work its way out, and then we're going to start seeing version 2 pop up. And then back to version 1 and version 2 and so forth. One of the things I just did was lower the time to live to 0. And you'll see that we're almost getting a new version each and every time we make the call. Now, a word of caution here on 0 time to live. AWS says that some DNS providers out there don't honor 0 time to live, and they kind of lose their mind when they see that. So AWS recommends putting at least a minimum of 10 seconds for time to live. So to close this out, I'm going to redirect all the traffic back to version 2, and eventually we'll see that right there. And now we're back on version 2.